So Erica Stanford was on Q&A in the weekend. We aren't going to cover the part where Jack Tame had to kind of find out from her about how these schools are going to be training teachers themselves now. And as I said earlier, my big concern about that is, of course, if schools are training teachers and then universities are getting these teachers for block courses. I mean, it sounds maybe good on paper, but if you include charter schools in there and you've got someone like a Destiny Church, having a charter school, then also being responsible for training the teachers, and then just, where's the quality assurance, basically, is the thing when schools start training the teachers rather than the universities doing an overall course. We're actually not talking about that today, but you could go back and watch the interview with Jack if you want to catch yourself up on it. What we are going to do is talk about, we're going to talk about what we've just been talking about. We're going to talk about COVID to start with. We're going to go into a couple of other topics as well. And even though I've played this tonight, I will play it again because it's only short. Erica Stanford asked about why she thinks teachers are on the top of the billing when it comes to catching COVID.
A 2022 Ministry of Health data found teachers have the highest self-reported case of COVID infection of any profession. Otago University researchers found teachers are the most susceptible when it comes to professions for long COVID. Why do you think that is?
Well, because they're surrounded by sick kids, I guess. I mean, that's the...
Yeah. So all I wanted to play is that much so we can hear that they're surrounded by sick kids. The government knows that, and that prompts a new lines of question from Jack Tame, where he wants to know about the pledge that this government has made to have more kids at school for longer, as Chewy just said, even with a sniffle. Will that pledge, these are now my words, put teachers in harm's way who are already the unluckiest in the country getting the worst amount of COVID? And the question is, will this government, see, this is where the game starts getting played. Will this government mandate this so much just to make sure their numbers look good over and above the health of the students, the families, and the teachers? That's the concern. So they talk a little bit for a few minutes about that, then they come back to this part of the conversation around, sick kids going to school.
So your attendance and workforce goals are really clear. Do you think there is a risk that in trying to avoid disruption, trying to get more kids back in schools, which I think everyone agrees is a noble goal, you will inadvertently create more disruption by having more illness?
You're talking about the new guidelines for
well, no,
illness.
I mean, you've set targets, for example, around school attendance, but at the same time, I've described to you, the pressures that are being caused by illness in schools already. And is there a tension there? Is there a risk that in prioritising school attendance and really pushing that issue, inadvertently, you're going to create a crisis whereby more teachers are sick?
Well, and also more students. That's the other thing. More teachers, more students, and that therefore means more people, because as Anna Brooks is just saying, they take it home. So, good question from Jack Tame, but he left out a part of the equation. Teachers, yes, because they're talking about teachers, but also students and those students' families. So it's a flow-on effect.
Well, I'm what would you say I should do in that case?
What we should say you should do is, if the child is sick, stay home. It's actually a really easy answer, Erica.
Super easy.
And you play kind of dumb here, like, well, what else could we possibly do? Yeah, if you're sick, stay home. Just thought I'd help you out.
She's a sick.
Well, I'm what would you say I should do in that case? Just ask more children to stay away more often? I'm not going to do that, because we know.
Yes. More children to stay away more often if they're sick. But you hear what she says straight away? I'm not going to do that. Why? Because they've said Labour attendance bad, national attendance better. So therefore, they actually can't tell sick kids to stay at home, because if they do, it'll be national attendance no better than Labour attendance bad, ipso facto, national attendance bad. So she says, I'm not going to do that. And it's not because it's for the health of the children, it's because it's for the policies of the National Party. Have a listen again.
And that, just ask more children to stay away more often. I'm not going to do that, because we know that every single day they spend at school is absolutely vital to their chances of getting NCEA. We know that. And in fact, we have to get the habit of regular attendance back into families' homes, because it's so vitally important.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what you're suggesting, but of course we will.
Sick children stay home. It's not that
Not
different,
even sick
Erica.
children, mate. Just like, if you're sick, don't think you have to be a fucking hero. Use your sick days. make sure that you are setting the example, that you don't make your colleagues sick.
Yeah.
You know, this is where it comes from, is that, yeah, you've got to go. You've just got to tough it out and soldier through. Like, I remember being so ropeable that a colleague of mine came to work with the flu and took out 6 of us over the next week. And he could have just taken the time.
Can I also suggest as well, though, there's an employment issue there as well. You know, if you don't have enough sick days, it puts financial pressure on you to come to school, come to work sick. So maybe there is some legislation. This fucking government's not going to do it, but maybe there is some legislative changes that maybe there can be some kind of, as long as you get a doctor's certificate, 6 days don't really count. Those 5 days can be for whatever reason. Anything above that, you have to have a doctor's certificate, and I don't know, you get ACC, which is 80% of your wage or something like that. Because I agree with you, Chewy. I would be ropeable. And actually, from a business point of view, your bosses should have been ropeable. They should have probably sent the person home, because they made the workplace function much more poorly for probably the next 2 weeks, where however long it was.
And look, there's countries overseas and there's businesses that have unlimited sick days. And what they found is that people, they get a job and they generally want to work and make money. But, you know, you give your staff unlimited sick days, people don't really tend to take the piss.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's keep going with Erica.
We want all of our children to be at school regularly. And yes, that may have an impact potentially on illness. And that's why we have to have more relievers. That's why we're looking at having better teacher supply. And I know it's...
Can I just say one more thing? Sorry to interrupt already. This is the second time in the last few days the government's done this. They say this is how we solve the problem. More teachers, more relievers, before they are able to solve the problem. Okay, so again, get more teachers, get more relievers, and then not worry about them being sick. But what you're saying is next week we could have a lot of sick teachers, but what we need to do over the next few years is get more teachers available. So the solution they're offering is we all want, I think, more teachers and more relievers, great, but it's not going to provide the answer for today. So I think that, you know, a half-pie, decent, honest group would first of all fix the problem of lacking numbers of teachers before they'd start throwing the other teachers into the COVID pool to make them sick with all their students who now have to come to school if they've only got a sniffle. That's what I think they need to start doing.
Issue, but the option to say, oh, well, just stay home from school more often is not an option for this government.
So your truer words couldn't be said for this government, not for the health of the children, not for the health of the teachers, not for the health of the families, but, quote, for this government.
Efforts to increase the number of teachers and the number of people coming into the profession, like you said, is kind of a medium-term goal. Do you think, given the pressures facing teachers at the moment, do you think it's likely we are going to see more schools have to close down during the winter period, temporarily, because of illness?
Look, they're already having to do some of those things where they're putting classes together. And the schools do an absolutely incredible job managing some of these pressures while we are sorting out teacher supply. So they get classes together, they're rostering, different year groups. They do an incredible job. Like I say, I don't have a silver bullet. I can't magic up teachers today. I've been in the job 6 months. We've got plans.
So why are they making changes that require more teachers? That's the thing. It's like going, I've got a rugby team that needs 15 people. I've only got 9 people at the moment. Well, we're going to start playing the games now with 9 people. And what happens when you get an injury and you're down to 8 people? Well, we need to get some reserves. We don't have them now, but we need to. So we're going to start playing the game now with 8 people. It's just it's lunacy.
I know it's a really tough time for school, and we'll do everything we can to support them.
Top of the list.
There you go. That's the end of that clip, Joe. Any thoughts, sir?
Oh, not really, which is probably about as many as Erica Stanford had during that interview.
It's all pretty obvious, though, isn't it? I mean, like she said the quiet stuff out loud. This is not an option for this government. Yeah, we know. We get it. This is all about the government. This is not an option for the teachers. This is not what's best for the children or the teachers or the families. This is not an option, again, quote, for this government.
So you're trying to attract more teachers, and you're illustrating the point that you don't really give a fuck about their workplace safety.
Yeah.
The quality of life while they're in the job. Like, this is what they don't get. It's the same with the police. It's the same with the nurses. Pay and conditions, pay and conditions, pay and conditions. It's the only thing that matters. And this comes very squarely under The conditions.
Yeah.
Teachers were saying right from the get-go that their classrooms were poorly ventilated, that they didn't have the space to spread people out, and they got sick in their droves.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Hey, let's keep going with this situation though, because we're speaking about schools, obviously Minister of Education, and they go to have a bit of a chat about charter schools, which I think is an interesting one. And the main, I'll give you the rationale as to why I think this is important at the end of the clip, probably during the clip. I can never survive till the end of the clip. But they're talking about charter schools and they're asking the question. And look, I'll give some credit to Erica Stanford here. She doesn't beat around the bush. She just goes, look, just to negate all your future questions, yes, that's right for all of them, which is she didn't get as hard a kind of grilling as many do. And I think for the most, she was answering the questions. Some of the questions were pretty awful, but she was answering the questions. And I think you see with Jack Tame, if you answer the question, even if it's a horrible answer, he tends to move on, which is appropriate. So talking about charter schools and asking charter schools, if they will be subject to the same conditions, the same demands that the government's putting on public schools. That's sort of the start of the conversation.
So to be
and
totally
if you're
clear,
that family living next to it, well then...
To be totally clear, hour of reading, writing, maths a day, will that apply to charter schools?
Sorry?
That rule? The hour of reading, writing and maths a day?
We can go into all of the things that you're about to say to me, and none of them do.
So that doesn't, cell phones don't?
No, because
structured literacy doesn't?
What we expect is for them to innovate and be ahead of the curve. I expect, actually, they will look at all the same research and evidence that I've been looking at, because they have to get results, right?
Sure.
So they'll look at all the same research and evidence that I'm looking at and go, actually, yep, that looks good.
And you're saying if they don't...
It is a concern that they think so highly of these charter schools. Charter schools, I'm assuming, Chewy, people will start up as a business investment and to make money as well as hopefully think they can do better schooling. But to kind of sit there and go, they're going to do all the right research and apply all the best standards. Just like, what's your evidence of that? Like, honestly, why do you think that these groups, these charter schools, which failed the last time around, are all of a sudden going to be ahead of the curve of sort of the education system of hundreds of years and, you know, tons of professionals and professors from around New Zealand? I don't quite understand. It seems that this government, maybe any government, this government's fairly able to trust you wholeheartedly if you fulfill their narrative, even if you fall short. And if you don't fulfill their narrative, they have no trust in you whatsoever, even if you live up to what you should be doing. It seems, you know what I'm saying?
They are literally going to piss money up the wall on this failed experiment again.
Yeah.
You know, it's, look, we've spoken about this before. There might be a place for charter schools. I don't think there is in the numbers that they are talking about. I think it was Seymour that was saying that they might just convert state schools into charter schools, and the schools themselves have no say in it at all. It doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound well reasoned. It doesn't sound well researched. But this whole thing of going, oh yeah, state schools have all of these rules and charter schools have none of them because they're innovative, I think is incredibly naive.
So this is my big point that I was going to try and save till the end, but I'm going to blow it early. If this government is standing up the front of the podium saying, we have the best way to get the best results from these students, it's an hour of reading, writing, arithmetic. It's no cell phones in schools. It's the new way of doing literacy. This is the best way for children to succeed. Oh, all you charter schools, you don't have to do that. Now, that either means that what they're asking of public schools is not the best way, or they're basically saying charter schools, you can be a level down because the way public schools are doing it is the best way. The way we're going to force them to do it is the best way. Now, if that's the best way, why aren't the charter schools going to do it? Unless it's not the best way, Chewy, and they know it. All right, we'll keep going.
Meet those standards
that you're about to say to me, and none of them do.
So that doesn't, cell phones don't?
No, because
structured literacy doesn't?
What we expect is for them to innovate and be ahead of the curve. I expect, actually, they will look at all the same research and evidence that I've been looking at, because they have to get results, right?
Sure.
So they'll look at all the same research and evidence that I'm looking at and go, actually, yep, that looks good.
And you're saying if they don't meet those standards, then they'll lose the contract.
But they might actually go further. You might actually find that there are a number of charter...
Skip past that question, didn't you?
schools who ban smartwatches and other devices because they're looking at research and going, actually, we want better results. What can we do to innovate? You might find that they go, actually, structured literacy is amazing. We now want to bring in structured mathematics or math mastery, and we're going to do the same in science and other subjects and actually be ahead of the state system because they have to get results, because if they don't...
Oh, I think I've got one of these, haven't I? Isn't one of these that? Oh, hang on. That's that one, isn't it?
You need to label your
It's
button.
not that one. That one. Sorry, I was just looking for the fairy dust to put across because, you know, this is what she's doing. Because they might do that. Oh, they might be better. That's what it is. It's no more vibes. It's now it might be better. It might be better. They might just look at that and they might be better. They might look at structured literacy and they go, that's the best way. Then why aren't they being forced to do it like all the public schools are? Unless they're going to find a better way. And if they find a better way, then your way is not the best way. And why are you forcing state schools to do it? Maybe.
Don't, then there are consequences.
So the Cabinet paper on charter schools promises improved learning outcomes for Māori and Pacifica. You talked about the evidence you've considered there. What evidence exists from the previous iteration of charter schools that it achieves those learning outcomes for those groups?
Well, when I take a look at the local one in my electorate, Vanguard, they are taking kids who fail in the mainstream from all over Auckland, in fact, outside of Auckland.
We can't let this go past. Always these ministers go to an anecdotal example. So because this one that I've seen locally is doing it well, then all of them are going to be great.
And I go and talk to those kids every year. I sit down with their new recruits, and you hear these heartbreaking tales of the fact that they were never succeeding in the mainstream. They thought that
this is the thing. This is the saying that quite out loud. What you're doing is you're going to force a whole new generation, Chewy will tell you, to not succeed in the public sector by doing this 1950s style teaching. However, 15 charter schools are going to start off with, and there's going to be a cost to them. So all those kids who can't afford or don't have access to a charter school are now going to fall through the cracks. They're going to be these kids you're fucking talking about that haven't succeeded in the system. You're creating a generation of that, and you're doing that to say, but charter schools. So 15 of them. Okay. What happens if the parents can't afford it, or there's not one in their area that this kid's going to fall through the cracks? It'll just work.
And you hear these heartbreaking tales of the fact that they were never succeeding in the mainstream. They thought that they were never going to succeed. In fact, many of them say to me, you know, we thought we were dumb. They get to a school like this that has the flexibility to innovate, the flexibility to do things differently. And these kids are now...
It sounds like she's saying that's better. So why the fuck aren't you doing that at every school? Like, she sounds like she's saying that's better. Doesn't it sound like she's saying charter schools are better? The way charter schools are going to do it is better. So then why are you forcing public schools to not do it that way? I kind of feel like you want to jump in here, Joe. You're welcome.
Because it's their standard narrative, Ben. Government, large, unwieldy, slow, even when we're in charge of it. State schools, large, unwieldy, slow, bound by rules, all of this sort of stuff. Charter schools, sexy, innovative, agile, private, money making. You know, just remember, whenever they are bigging up these charter schools, it costs around 10 to 12 grand per year to teach a student in a state school. Last time they tried this charter school bullshit,
48.
50 grand per student. Like Vanguard's the school that she's talking about is Vanguard Academy, which is a military style academy school. And they always trot this one out because it has that image and it has a lot of success stories and that sort of thing. And they're using that as like every charter school is going to be like this. But it's not. All the other charter schools will be some sort of wackadoo, religious, don't have to follow the state prospectus bullshit at all, and they can teach whatever they want. They can have anyone teach it. You don't have to be a teacher.
Yeah.
There's no state oversight at all on educational outcomes in these charter schools. For every good one you have, you might have 3 or 4 that are shithouse. that are just churning out the next generation of bigots and nutbars.
And let me say this, a good education system, one that we can actually be proud of, which is sort of the words that they're talking about, greatest little country in the world, best education system in the world, would be a system that those kids wouldn't fall through. She's just talking about kids who felt like they were dumb. A good education system would work where they didn't feel like that. That an education system would be able to like provide for all of their kids, not back to the 1950s of reading, writing, and arithmetic, which is going to be perfectly fine for a lot of the kids, maybe most of the kids, the academic kids. I would have been okay with that. My brain works in a certain way, even though I'm dyslexic. I like numbers. I like shapes. It works, right? For other people, maybe not so much. And a good education system would have a place for them and a way to teach them, and not just go, hey, there's charter schools for you. There's not one within 200 Ks. Maybe that's how you can get there every day.
I'm not even going to say that all charter schools are bad. I just think the space that they operate in would be extremely limited.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they should receive no more funding per student than a state school does.
Sure.
You know, because I'm sure if you flooded the state education system with 50 grand per student per year,
Yeah,
they could fucking pull some pretty good results out there as well, because they're able to pay their teachers more. They have more resources. You know, they're able to hire more relievers or assistants. They could bring their class sizes down. All the things that charter schools do, if it's going to come down to just a question of funding, rather than these guys look like they're an American-style military academy, isn't that cool? State schools can get those results as well. You know, state teachers can be just as effective when they're not under
and
the
innovative,
pump, fighting off.
Innovative.
Give them. People are innovative when they're well resourced and they have time to think.
Yep.
You know, and so that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. All right. Hey, listen,
this state system the money it needs.
100%. This has got about 2 minutes to go in my notes, so let's just get to the end of it, and I'll try not to interrupt, and then we'll move on to the last story.
100% of them get NCEA. They get all of their kids across the line.
This is anecdotal, right? And this is an independent school
Jack.
that currently exists under the current model, but under the previous iteration of what were then called charter schools, is there high level evidence that suggests that learning outcomes for Māori and Pacifica were improved?
Look, you're going to have to talk to David Seymour about the detail on all of this, but I know.
Oh, this is the I'm running away now. This is the equivalent of run away. You know that scene from Monty Python, Holy Grail, run away. Run away. That's what she's the fucking minister. She's the buck stopper. This is the runaway bit.
Were improved.
Look, you're going to have to talk to David Seymour about the detail on all of this, but I know
the regulatory
overall,
the regulatory impact statement says it was unclear if the model had an impact on the academic achievement of these specific learner groups. That's what the regulatory impact statement said. Yeah. But then your cabinet paper said it promised improved learning outcomes.
Yes, well, it wasn't my cabinet paper; it was David Seymour. So let's be clear about that.
You're the minister with overall responsibility.
Yeah. Run away. He's in the detail on this. I am the responsible.
See what I mean? The cabinet paper's promising one thing. The regulatory impact statement from when
said it wasn't
charter schools said there was no evidence.
But we're doing things differently this time for a start. So David Seymour is taking a look at what
not necessarily better, as Joy always says.
We did before. This is a small scale trial where we're not going to set and forget. We're going to learn from as we go.
It's not that small.
Well, there's 15 new schools, right? So in the grand scheme of things, quite small.
Relative to the overall.
Quite small, right? So we're learning from what happened before, and I know David's doing a number of things differently. But secondly, it's all about the contracting, right? So when we're saying to it, the whole point of these new schools is to set up to offer those people who don't have any other choice but their local failing school something different. And the contracting is
even the framing of that, their local failing school. Remember, we had this conversation with a person, I didn't say who it was, from a department last week, and they said to us in our meetup, we're contractually obliged to not criticize the public department we're living for. And she just goes out there and basically just whitewashes, the failing local, the failing. That's the framing of it is that the local school will fail and the charter school will be fantastic. I do like that sound effect. It's working. It's worth its weight in gold today.
The important part. You have to meet certain outcomes if you want this funding and if you want to be a charter school. Because currently, the alternative is, you know, we're sending our Māori and Pacifica students to schools that fail them and have failed them for decades. You know, we want to try something different. We want these schools to innovate.
Got it. So Māori and Pacifica are an experiment. That's what you're saying. Because what you're saying here, okay, let's be clear. What you're saying here is it hasn't worked in the past, so we're going to give something else a crack. So what you're doing is you're going to get a generation of Māori and Pacific children and children in general, and you're going to do an experiment on them. And it might work, but guess what else? Might fucking not.
Fail them and have failed them for decades. You know, we want to try something different. We want these schools to innovate. We've seen the examples of where it's worked incredibly well. We want to take the example of Vanguard.
Yep, this has got about 12 seconds, but yep.
Yeah. So the application, well, not even the applications, you just spelled it out. Māori and Pacific Islander students are not served by state schools. You know, they get poor results, so it's not working. So we've got to head the charter schools. And the example of the charter school that they're holding up is a military academy. It's not, we've listened to people in the Māori and Pacific Island communities about what they think their students might need, different forms of learning and that sort of thing. We haven't got an example like that. We've got a military academy.
Yep, too true.
Examples of where it's worked incredibly well. We want to take the...
She also does say examples. So far, she said example, singular, not
just Vanguard.
Example of Vanguard. How do we get that across the whole country?